right, that's a pretty cool shot, isn't it? Pretty epic, except it's not an epic. So I had a hitch installed on a 2015 Honda Accord Sport. Tow capacity is like 2,500 pounds, if I remember correctly, or maybe 2,000 pounds. Got it done at a local U-Haul service center, and paid around $450, I remember correctly. I was in a time crunch. I needed it installed, so I didn't even attempt to figure it out myself. I just paid to get it done. Dropped it off. When I went to pick up the car, I noticed a trim piece on the back of the bumper. Looks like it was definitely not in place. Definitely not. It was removed and definitely not installed like the way it should. I asked if the bumper was removed. They said no. I was like, all right, well, I didn't see it before, so I'll deal with it. The hitch worked fine. It towed just fine. It towed over 7 hours or 12 hours, and approximately 2,000 pounds. No issues. The lights worked, but 3 problems that I had. I had there was like first of all, I didn't drive this car on a regular, but whenever I did, it would just annoy the heck out of me. There was like clearly some loose item in the back, and it was in the trunk on the driver's side. And it was like, I suspect it was a loose wire that was just making contact with the frame of the car. And each time you'd like make a turn, it would like swing or stop. It would like, swing back and forth and bang. And just small, subtle, like isolated noise that just kind of catches your attention. So there was that. Then there was a trim piece that was clearly removed and or tampered with and not reinstalled properly. So those 2 things bothered me. And it wasn't until yesterday that I was able to address them. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you a tool that helped me address that problem. So I popped the trim. I have that 21-piece Lisle trim clip tool set, whatever. And not sure if I can. It's convenient that I walked by the light as it turned off. Yeah, it's just a trim clip tool. And conveniently, I grabbed the right one, was able to pop all those trim pieces out. No issues. And the wire was loose, like it was just like strung out in the back, connected to the taillight on both sides. So I zip tied it to the existing wire loom as best as possible to keep it snug and tight. So that should eliminate the problem. I drove it briefly, didn't hear any clunking. I did hear something, but it doesn't sound like the thing that I heard previously. So there's that. Then I wanted to remove that hitch because that was, I'm not going to use it again or anytime soon, and it just looks tacky on the car. For one, I bought one of those little hitch, little plugs, and it fell out. And I was like, I'm not buying another one. So I went to go and remove the hitch, and well, can't get access to the bolt that holds up the main bolts that hold up the hitch. You have like a U-nut that's connected to the little jack point in the back. So there's like 3 points of connection for that hitch frame. But the ones above the exhaust, and mind you, it's a dual exhaust. So you got to drop both sides. So I was able to, I tried a ratchet, didn't work with a low profile. Tried a wrench, flex head wrench, didn't work. And finally I gave him the ghost. And so I have a tool that I hadn't used in ever, but nonetheless I have it. And so here we go. You can see the end is marred up. It got used. It went in a battle for the first time. I want to say this is a Lisle. It says made in the USA, or yeah. on both sides actually. That means it's worth it. Wear eye protection. I definitely did not. I should have worn eye protection because being out of the car, all that road grime falling, yeah, it's a couple times where it got in my eyes. I mean, this thing opens up really far. But nonetheless, so those exhaust hangers, the rubber hangers, you pretty much push on the metal thing that goes through them, and then push on the rubber. I mean, this is self-explanatory, and you just kind of squeeze it off. So this is the tool. Like, I've had it all these years and never used it, but yesterday when I did it, I mean, I removed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like hanger things, and this thing made it so easy, minus the confined space. So this is a keeper regardless of how many times you use it, and I highly recommend. Obviously, if you work in an exhaust shop, you're gonna have these just laying around, but yeah, that's why I like tools. I like buying tools because I know the purpose, not because I need it immediately. Because yesterday when I needed that tool, I would have had to go figure it out or stop the job and then, order it and then wait. So yeah, was able to remove that hitch frame. And then I noticed that in order to install the hitch frame, they had to cut a little exhaust shield that was above the exhaust. Pretty janky job, pretty janky. Really sharp edges. I mean, yeah, it would have been sharp anyway, but definitely not having jagged edges. Looks like they used a pliers to freaking pinch the thing apart instead of using a cutter to cut that really thin aluminum foil. So pretty janky job there on the installer's part. And then not only that, they had obviously cut it. They looked like they removed it to cut it. I mean, that would make sense. And then they lost a couple of the nuts, like on the passenger side, it was missing like 3 nuts. So this thing was held on by, I want to say it was held on by 5 or 4, and it was missing 2 on one side and 1 on the next side. So effectively that thing could flop around. So the trim, and then the trim piece, like looking at it from the backside, I was able to remove a little nut and pulled it back, and the trim tab was not inserted into the little slot. It actually missed a slot and was deflected downwards, so there's no way for that trim to go inwards. So I had to force it back up, let it slip into the thing, into the little slot, and then button it up. Of course, it's been sitting there for like 3 years, so it's slightly warped. It's not as clean if it installed again as it was brand new, but also now it's looking way better than it did. So 3 things. So yeah, the hitch worked, the lights worked, but the 3 complaints I had was the wire was done jankily. It wasn't secured in the back, so it like knocked as it was just hidden around in the back in the trunk. The trim piece on the bumper, they definitely messed with it and did not fess up to it and or fix it initially prior to me picking it up. And then you remove the exhaust shield and you cut it jankily. Is that a word? It was all jagged and all this stuff. And then not only that, you failed to install the retaining fasteners that holds it in place. Oh yeah, and then there was like a plastic trim piece that was missing from the underside. So U-Haul is a professional company, and I'm pretty sure it has provided, hopefully it does provide the technicians, aside from quality workmanship training, but also some means to retaining fasteners, so you're not just tossing them around. Everyone has pulled up to a U-Haul and seen, the bay door open and someone like working on a hitch or something. And this is not against everyone, but clearly it was on the training and the quality assurance of the person that did it. But yeah, that exhaust hanger plier, if you're gonna be dropping exhaust, putting the exhaust on, well, I don't know about putting it on. If you're gonna be dropping exhaust, you definitely need this to make your life easier. Like I said, this is made by Lisle, And yeah, I've heard about people using like I tried using this, and I was like, this is not gonna work too well. I guess it could, but you struggle a little bit more. I even brought out my lady slippers, my heel bar, and that having the right tool for the job just made it so much easier. Now to install it, it was actually way easier because I just used some well, it's locked. I just used some silicone Siliglide on the exhaust hangers. I just like dabbed a little bit into the opening of the thing, and I was able to just install it by hand. So that was easy. Hopefully, it having that lubrication on that thing doesn't allow it to like slide back out or something, or back out of that hanger. But yeah, that was yesterday. Had my neighbor's his wife, her Hyundai Elantra in here. Did an oil change on it, pretty easy. Topped off her washer fluid as much as I could with what I had remaining. Shy off using water because it's getting cold. Like I said, did the oil change. Checked over all her fluids. Last time we did brakes and rotors, I put some anti-corrosion on the battery terminal. This is obviously not hers, but yeah, representative. And her stuff was so much more corroded again. And then, I did an upsell. Is that what you call it? I did an upsell, so I vacuumed out her engine air box right there and knocked out the filter. The filter was pretty dusty. The husband said he would just replace it, but nonetheless, upsell, and pulled off my vacuum off the wall, and yeah, me saying upsell is just a joke. Obviously, I don't charge the guy to change his oil or anything. So yeah, this car is getting some charge. It sits here, it doesn't get driven much, and it's the battery just kind of drains. This car has a notorious problem of having a parasitic draw, but I think that's addressed with trying to see, it's like a squirrel moment. It's like, is it missing a fastener from here? Looks like it. I don't see anything up here. Yeah, I'll put a fastener in there. Whenever I see a fastener missing, I always replace it, because these cars are held together by plastic. But yeah, got them all fixed up, and out the door. And then last thing I'll say, well, not last thing, my lights, I keep using all the lights, but not like charging them. So now I'm like operating on one bar. If not, half these lights are dead. So I gotta charge them. And then the last thing, so also service the lady's Acura MDX 2019. That was the first time since it was purchased back in, it was purchased back in December of last year. Yeah, December of last year it was purchased. And this is the first time it has gotten an oil change. Granted, she hasn't driven that much. She probably put 3,000 miles on it. So that makes sense. But why would you need an oil change by 3,000 miles? But yeah, anyway, it wasn't driven that much, but it was the first oil change. But something that I noticed, I posted a short, the axle nut on the passenger side, when I go to rotate the tires. This one was giving me a hard time. For one, it gave me a hard time to get off. Like I was kicking on the wheel, like literally with my foot, my boot, kicking on it. up top, it would not come off. And so I went for my larger dead blow hammer and hit the tire a couple times. And it finally came loose. I didn't clean up the little corrosion around it. I should have, but it's something I'll address later on, I guess. Yeah, and when I went to install it, it was giving me a hard time seating. And like for me, whenever I put a wheel on, can't really see it, but let's see if I can get a light. And it's just, I mean, I say for me, but this is, I imagine if you worked at a tire shop, see? Light is dead, completely dead. Gave up the ghost. Maybe Harbor Freight will come to the rescue. You can always count on Harbor Freight. So you see how the wheel is mated up to the rotor. Whenever I put a wheel on, I always spin it and make sure it's completely flushed. So there's no risk of, so when I say mated up, like this surface right here is in full contact. It's not like, you know, are misaligned or something. And so that was giving me a hard time yesterday when I was trying to get the MDX set up. And so I took it off, and that's when I noticed the axle nut wasn't staked. I did notice it was staked on that side just by pure coincidence that I paid attention. But I would have, had they not had the wheel not giving me any issue going back on, I would have installed it and not caught it until maybe later on. And we all know the importance of axle nut being staked so it doesn't back off. Next thing you know, yeah, you're scraping the ground. So there was that. And then additionally about these newer cars, I looked in the owner's manual. I mean, standard was cars, right? Owner's manual. That thing did not tell you what kind of oil or what capacity the actual vehicle took. So aside from the oil cap and trusting the guy at AutoZone to tell me, there's no way to tell. It doesn't tell you what capacity, so hopefully you have a dipstick. I know a lot of cars sometimes have gone away from dipstick. So there's no way to tell with these newer cars. I mean, unless you're gonna get like all data or Identifix or one of those professional grade subscription based repair service data. So, and then the wheels doesn't tell you what torque spec the wheels should be. Like those are basic things. Tell me what torque specs, if I remove my tire, what torque specs I need to have to put my wheels back on safely, right? Just like you tell me the PSI that my tire needs to be. And soon, I guarantee you they'll probably start removing that from the little sticker on the door jamb on the driver's side, because they're trying to save weight and trying to save costs. They have removed, most new cars don't even have a spare tire. It just has an empty slot, so you got to go out and source a spare tire for yourself. Like the MDX does not have a spare tire, you know, so you got to go to a junkyard or go somewhere and pony up the money and get a spare tire. Like, if you have a flat, you can't get yourself out of Dodge because, you know, you're stuck until you can find someone to come out and give you a hand. So I don't know what's going on with cars these days, or manufacturers, or, you know, the people that make the rules. But yeah, no torque specs on the wheel, so I just torqued them to, on the Acura MDX, that is, I just torqued them to like 95 foot-pounds. These are 85. That's a bigger vehicle, so I figure a little bit more. So I torqued it to 95. Not sure what the torque spec is. I was gonna see if they have a Haynes manual for it, or a Clifton, or one of those generic service manuals, but I wasn't able to see any online. I might have to just go to my regular AutoZone and check in with them to see if they carry that. Yeah, I think that's all that's been going on around here. Gonna be a pretty chill day. Woke up early, so I'm just gonna go back to bed, if I was to be honest. Got some work to do, but nothing that I gotta start immediately, but definitely gotta get done. What else is there? I don't want to make a part 2. So back to my neighbor's Hyundai. The remnants is not here. Maybe some. You can't really see it. But I don't know how many times they reused the crush washer on the drain bolt. I'm not a professional mechanic, and I only went to YouTube, Toolbox Store, and Tool Haul Academy, and DIY Academy. But again, I don't know how many times I don't know where they brought it to. In fact, they said they were waiting to backstory. The only reason I volunteered to do an oil change is, well, it's not the only reason. It was brought up when I saw them, because I was out of town, that she's waiting for an oil change, and the next available date is like mid-December. Well, this is November 2nd or 3rd, and so basically a month and a half to get an oil change. Not sure why the backlog, but yeah, I was like, well, I can do it. And so next day they text me. I was like, hey, are you free? I was like, give me 30 minutes. And so yeah, knocked it out. Removed the drain bolt, no issues. It wasn't like impacted on or anything, but the crush washer was clearly reused multiple times, and I had to put it in a vise and use a little prying tool to keep prying at it. And then finally I started using my my pliers and start like chipping away at it, because I mean it's a crush washer, so it's really soft metal, and I was able to remove it. Clearly has not been changed in a while. So when you see shortcuts like the axle nuts not being staked, when the crush washer, simple basic stuff, it's not anything like crazy, like, yeah, in my opinion. Like, to me, diagnosing a more serious car problem, electrical and or starting related, all that stuff, those are more things. But when you're more critical things, but when you're doing like basic stuff that I guess everyone should know if they're doing automotive work professionally, kind of lets you wonder why you're paying so much and why people distrust the industry so much. And not ragging on everybody or ragging on anything. I'm just pointing out the obvious. I don't know. Stuff happens, mistakes happen. And I'm pretty sure a lot of it is not intentional, but I believe sometimes a lot of it could be how at least I've perceived the industry to be from what I've heard and seen. It's just this go-go mindset, make money from the management perspective, and obviously the mechanic has to eat also, so he has to do the whole flat rate thing and beat the time and do all this extra stuff. And you see it time and time again, people working on cars on YouTube or something, professionally that is, and simple stuff they should have done. They either just don't do it. Like some of the I'm not even gonna go into it, but anyway, if you're a professional mechanic out there, just imagine if your family was driving in that car, or this was your car, your only car, and if something was to happen that was catastrophic, it would mean that they would be financially out of it and out of a set of wheels to or from work. So just take that extra second and do that extra thing. I think it will probably make us all a better person. Anyway, this video is getting long for what it is. Literally, it was meant to show a set of pliers to remove exhaust hangers, but we're talking about a lot of stuff. So we're just gonna call this around the garage. Anyway, as I always say, like on hitting.